Managers of Reddit, what is the stupidest thing an employee did that forced you to fire them? Not a manager, but someone was recently fired from my job for something so stupid it probably inspired a few dozen facepalms. I work at a retail store of a very well-known technology company. Customers very often trade in their old smartphones for a credit when they buy a new one. Protocol is to erase the old phone in the customer's presence. One employee didn't erase the phone, went through the camera roll, found some pictures he liked, the customer was female, and emailed them to himself using the customer's email account that was logged into the phone. The customer found the emails in her sent box and complained to MGMT. He was several levels of fired. I had an assistant manager who would short the till every single day $3.64. It was always the same amount and we could never prove it was him, even though it clearly lined up with only his shifts, day or night. Until one day he came back from lunch at Taco Bell in our parking lot, and my other assistant saw his lunch and thought to herself, that looks good, and walked across the street on her break and ordered the same thing. Her total? $3.64. She immediately came back and told me. I pulled all the drawers and sure enough one was short that exact amount. The kicker: when he was sat down by our DM to be terminated, all they told him was, "We know what you've been stealing." And his response was, "Oh, you finally figured out I was stealing all those Skechers shape-ups." For those that don't remember, those shoes were $130 a pair. Two employees hooked up on camera, then tried to delete the footage. Employee brought a gun to work and kept it in his work area. Assistant manager watched pronoun on a work computer, crashed the whole property system. Bartender walked a baffly out to her car, stayed for half an hour to get service to employees, stole food from freezer, had cookout and invited staff, including an assistant manager. Every year during the holiday season, Ed warned the new hires, "Listen, no matter how tempting it is, don't steal a customer's gift card. We can track it, I will track it, and if I catch you, you will get fired." Every year people try it, every year people get fired. Don't do it. They do it anyway. A lady I used to work with got fired for doing this. She'd swipe to activate the gift card, charge the customer, then did a switcheroo to give the customer an empty. She was smart enough to go to a different store to use the gift cards, but she was stupid enough to ask for an employee discount, which required filling out a small card with name and employee number. The manager that rang her through, only managers can ring through employees, noticed her huge stack of gift cards and got suspicious. So she called our store, which had been dealing with customers claiming their gift cards not working. Put two and two together and she got fired. New guy, around 20 years old or so, called in sick saying he thinks he had a stroke. Since he lived across the street from the store where we worked, we all then stood and watched through the store's glass door as he packed up his truck with beach gear and drove off with his girlfriend. Fired the next day. Girl decides to start stealing some of our products from the warehouse and sell them on eBay as brand new, with factory warranty. It only took a couple of weeks before we started getting calls for tech support for products with serial numbers we did not have registered as sold in the system. Brief investigation leads straight to her. She is fired, of course, and legal action pursued, but the sad angle to the story is that her father worked there too, and we were forced to make him stay at home with no pay until it could be determined beyond any doubt that he wasn't involved. Offered a job to a candidate, but had to step out of the office to grab some paperwork. Came back and a bus pass that was on the desk was missing. Newly hired employee stole it. I asked him to return it because a previous candidate dropped it, and he said he needed it more than they did and walked out. Not a manager, but I did have a co-worker who came to work high and washed himself in our kitchen sanitizer sink. FK was taking a damned bubble bath. I had a guy that worked for me that was very junior, just graduated college. His communication skills were poor. His coding skills, we were in ed, were not so good. Had never written a program for money. His ability to transfer requirements from people/paper to software were not yet there, not even close. He needed mentoring, big time. Problem was, he liked to work from 4 PM till whenever, really never knew when that was. Everyone else was home. This is before broadband in the house, so he had to come into the office, but we never knew for how long. So, I introduced the concept of mandatory core hours. Everyone must be in the office with time off for lunch between 10 AM and 3 PM. You could come in early, you could stay later, but you should be in by 10 AM. And leaving for the day no earlier than 3 PM of course. Exceptions could and would be made for doctor appointments / still. Did not work. He said I like to be out with friends and family until 4/5/6 AM. I cannot be at work at 10 AM. I'm not a banker, direct quote. I told him it didn't matter, that is the way it was. Someone even set up an office pool where you could pick the time that X would show up. They gave him the 10 AM box for free. Everyone else paid $1. He never won the pool. Not once, not even close. I shut down the pool after a short while. Argued with me about core hours up and down. End users hated him because whatever he turned out was useless. Never made core hours. Got straight zeros on the employee yearly evaluation. And the surprised look on his face after I took a paper trail a mile long 2 hours asking if we can get rid of him, not to another group within the company, but from the company itself. They were thankful for all of the emails, the employee evaluation, all of the documentation. We were an at-will employer, technically did not need it all, but with people thinking I was discriminated against and suing, they liked having it all. He was gone by the end of the week. I had an employee lock another employee in a closet one time. The person that was trapped called the police from inside the closet. It was quite an hour nightmare. He stole a bunch of bananas. Seriously. It was a college dining hall. He was an employee of the dining hall and got free meals while on shift. He was not working that day, walked into the serving area, hid a bunch of bananas in his bag, and tried to pass the cashier, only paying for what was on his tray. When confronted and asked if he had forgotten anything, maybe in his bag, he denied having anything else. Fired on the spot. The worst part, he was on a meal plan, a kind of debit system, except you never get the money back at the end of the semester if you don't spend it. He had plenty of money for the semester. I have no idea why he felt the need to steal bananas. I fired an employee for being seen on camera throwing silverware and plates into the dumpster instead of washing them in the automatic dishwasher. She was, wait for it, hired to wash dishes. Had an employee male around 22 years old, blatantly and apparently with some force, grab and jiggle the breasts of a 16-year-old female employee. He did not speak English and used fairly obscene hand gestures to convey his defense. His reason for fondling a teenager: her breasts were very large and he couldn't believe it. We put a girl on a final warning and told her explicitly that any infraction would lead to her termination. Next shift we pass by and she isn't wearing a name tag on her sweater. We ask her to put it on. She peels back her sweater to reveal her name tag on the t-shirt underneath. We ask her to put it on the outside where it's visible. She refuses, doesn't offer a reason, just says no. Goodbye. Stupid rule. Stupid reason to be fired. Every day at lunch, she would drink roughly half of her Jimmy John's or whatever soda, then take it with her to the bathroom to fill it back up with whiskey. She did a pretty good job covering up the smell, and since she did it from day one, it wasn't immediately obvious that she was getting drunk. Found out on day 4 when she knocked her full cup over and we all got punched with the smell of booze in the afternoon. Fresh out of college, I worked in a call center for a mutual fund company. Job wasn't terribly hard, just placed trades all day and occasionally had to deal with a jerk here and there. An older guy who sat around the corner from me was kind of sad looking and hated being there. He would put customers on mute and curse under his breath from time to time. Well, one day he had an older lady call in to place a trade to cash and she wasn't very pleasant. He hit his mute button, but the phone didn't mute. He proceeded to call her an old nasty bitch who will die alone, until she interrupted him and said, "Excuse me." To the old guy's surprise, he asked her what she was talking about and said she was hearing things. She hung up and the call got escalated. His boss pulled the call and pulled him aside. He was told to just be honest and he wouldn't be fired. Instead of coming clean, he kept denying it and the call was played back to him. Security walked him out right from the conference room. He'll never forget a Caesar salad sitting on his desk for the last 5 hours of the day. Rumor has it, they put the salad in his box of belongings and mailed to his home address, but I like to think it's still sitting on that desk as a reminder. Guy hired to manage a store in a mall refused to park in employee parking. As I'm sure everyone knows, mall employees have designated parking places, far from the choice spots near mall entrances. This guy refused to park there, and every time he parked illegally, the store got fined $100. And he parked in customer parking every damn day. He was called out on it, the policy was explained over and over. He got written up. He was told that on the next infraction he would be fired. And he did it the very next day. Was totally blindsided when we actually fired him. Used to be a supervisor at a big store in college. Other supervisor overhears an employee telling someone he has a joint in his pocket for later. My boss calls the employee into the back office to discuss with ours. Ours rep asks him if he does indeed have pot. Response: nope, I smoked it already. Almost died laughing. Hired a girl to work in a bagel store who on her first day told me she couldn't touch any of the meats because she was vegan. Had another guy show up for work his first day, was doing just fine, seemed to be good with the job. I went to the office to get some paperwork for him to fill out, and he was just gone. Never came back, didn't steal anything, no explanation at all. The bad one was, had to fire a girl for not showing up for several days in a row. Saw in a newspaper the next week that she had been in jail the whole time because she had locked her kids in a closet while she was buying coke. We kept finding stock discrepancies. We couldn't figure out for a while what was happening. The count on certain items was out. System said we had stuff that wasn't on the shelf. Eventually found that when a customer bought something with cash, later that same day the same cashier would refund the transaction for cash with no customer around. They were fired on the spot, but couldn't be charged criminally because the way the camera sat, they'd been able to block the view of the cash drawer with their body and you couldn't actually see them take the money out of the till. Even though we knew exactly when the false transactions were posted, footage placed them right there doing something and intentionally blocking the view at that exact time. There's only one way everything added up, but they still got away with it. If they'd just been pulling cash out we would have caught it right away, but the counts were never out because there was a transaction in the system. So they'd been doing this occasionally for a couple months. We figured they'd gotten away with a couple grand. Return procedures changed after that. Edit. Quite a few have pointed out we probably could have charged the person. There were two problems. First was the police weren't much interested in chasing someone for only a couple grand, so we would need to do all the work, which meant sifting through months worth of paperwork to mail them to the wall. Second was management and ours just wanted the whole thing to go away. Regarding our return procedures, before that the cashiers were trusted to run their own returns. Afterwards they needed to get authorization from one of the supervisors. But it didn't happen again. I didn't fire him, I reported him, but upper management won't really fire anyone unless someone sees them stealing. But anyway, I worked at a grocery store and this dude that had been working for 2 days was taking all the vanilla extract off the shelf and getting drunk off of it. We'd find the bottles in the back bathroom that only employees used. Everyone knew. He slept in the bathroom for 2 hours and still didn't get fired. He ended up quitting. His name was Phil. So we'd all call him Philly Vanilli after the fact.